Welcome to another video with Mr. Long, and we are looking at the CAT or Computer Application Technology PAT for grade 11. So this is the grade 11 one for 2024. So we're just going to go through this document so that you can get an idea of how you can get started, what to expect for your PAT, and I'll give you some tips as we go along so they can help you as you complete your PAT. So let's have a look at what this document has in it. So we're going to go first of all to the first page, which just basically talks about what is a PAT. You probably did a PAT in grade 10, and basically the PAT is a way to show off all the skills you've learned over the last 2 years as a CAT student, both in grade 10 and grade 11. So when we say show off your skills, we mean show off everything. So everything that you've learned. That includes your Word document skills, your spreadsheet skills for Excel. This year you would have learned about databases and HTML. You need to show them off as well. All the different features that you've learned this year. So they talk about what you need, but you can read through that. But I want to look here at the mark allocation. You'll see that the PAT is divided up into 3 phases. There's phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. This is going to follow very similar to what it's going to look like in Matric. So as you can see over here, we can see that the first phase is going to be a document that we're going to create with our research, and that's going to be about 32 marks. And then our phase 2 is going to be a questionnaire, a spreadsheet, and a database, which is quite a lot of work, but that's going to be for 40 marks. And then our phase 3 is simply the website. In Matric, you're going to be doing quite a bit to your document that you create in phase 1, but in grade 11, we're just focusing on the website to present our information, and that's 48 marks. So as you can see that the phase 3 is quite a lot of the marks, and it's going to be out of 120 in total. My first tip is to really encourage you to apply an attitude to this PAT that you are going to attempt everything. A lot of the times there are students that get 50 or 60% for CAT, but they are able to get a good 80 to 90% for their PAT because a lot of the PAT is simply making sure that you complete the task. And this is your grade 11 PAT. And often I see students who don't take the PAT seriously in grade 11, and that carries over into grade 12, and that can really negatively affect your Matric results at the end of the year. The PAT is such a useful way to improve your marks. I like to think of it like clay. When you are molding clay, obviously you need to put water with it so that you can sculpt it the way you want. But the longer you go, the less water you have, the harder it gets to mold that clay. The habits that you form now are going to be the habits that you're going to carry over into Matric a lot of the time. I'm not saying that you can't change, but as you get older, it becomes more difficult to change old habits. So we want to create good habits and not create bad habits. And a bad habit would be to procrastinate or to just ignore certain aspects of the pattern or not get all the marks. Create a habit now of making sure that you go through every single aspect of this PAT and make sure that you attempt everything. And so then you'll carry that attitude into next year when it counts for grade 12. My second tip is that, as you can see, the website actually counts most of the marks. I really want you, particularly in phase 3, to focus a lot on the phase 3 and making sure that you look at the rubric and make sure that you get everything in the website, because that's a significant amount of marks for what you'll see will be 2 web pages. So really put a lot of focus on getting that website completed with everything that they're asking for so you can maximize those 48 marks. Your teacher will give you deadlines of when these phases need to be complete, so you can discuss that with them. But if we scroll down here, you'll see that they talk about please do not cheat. It's not worth it. It's very easy to pick up if you are presenting work that is not your own. So please make sure that you are just working on your own, making sure that you're doing the work, meeting the deadlines, and that counts 25% of your final mark. And so here they mention that it must be handed in 3 weeks before the start of your final grade 11 examinations. You must discuss with your teacher about those deadlines. They may want to have deadlines for each phase. They may change that particular deadline. Maybe they want it a bit earlier, but you will discuss that with your teacher and make sure that you take note of it so that you can complete your PAT on time. And please, the PAT is compulsory. It's not something you can just, I'm not going to do it this year. No, you must do the PAT. Not only is it useful to revise the work for your exams because you're covering all the skills, but it is a requirement in order to pass CAT. You must have a PAT. It would be like not pitching up for an exam. So make sure that you complete the PAT. So let's look at your topic. Your topic is e-waste and solutions and implications of e-waste. Now, just a reminder, e-waste is the disposal of electronic devices and equipment. So this often gets talked about when we talk about green computing, but please don't get it confused with green computing. Green computing includes things like paper recycling and that. This is specifically about the electronic devices and the waste management, the recycling of it and so on. Do not go into paper management, and that's not actually e-waste. We're talking about computers, cell phones, old printers, all those electronic devices that we don't need anymore. How do we get rid of them in such a way that it doesn't affect the environment? That's basically what we're looking at. What are the implications to our environment? What are the solutions? You can see here they talk about the negative impacts on both humans and the environment. And if we scroll down a bit here, you'll see that they've given us a lot of nice information, what chemicals are in cell phones. If you just think about cell phones, a cell phone contract is traditionally 2 years. So most people try to get a new cell phone every 2 years. If you get a phone when you're 16, for example, and let's say you live to 70 years old, that means you're probably going to have about 27 cell phones in your lifetime. And that's not including the ones that break a bit earlier that you need to be replaced. That's a lot of cell phones. Think about them all piled up in your room. What can we do to make sure that those devices don't have a negative impact on the environment? They contain chemicals which leak into the environment, which are not good for them. So you can read about that. Your task is to focus on particularly the environmental implications or the health implications or the economic implications, how it affects the money and so on. And that also includes identifying solutions of how we can get rid of it correctly in South Africa. When they talk about South Africa, we can talk about the local area. Maybe you want to look at just your specific suburb or city, or we can look at a province or national level. So this is going to help guide you on who you're going to include in your surveys and where your research is going to go. So there is a resource folder which we've got over here, and you can see that they've given the actual PAT document there, and they've given a whole bunch of resources. There's a whole bunch of PDF documents which are websites which have been saved for you, so you can actually download this whole resource folder once off, and then you don't actually need to go on the internet when you are reading these articles. But there are resources relating to South Africa, there are resources relating to other countries, and you'll see later on when we talk about the phase 2, there are the database examples which they're going to give you. Make sure that you get access to this. Maybe your school's going to download this for you and put that on a local drive, but this is going to be a very useful resource for you. They talk about it. They actually give you a focus question. In grade 12, you're going to have to make your own one. So the difference between grade 12 and grade 11 is that the focus question is pretty much given to you. All you have to do is adapt that part of it really. Wherever you are focusing on, you're focusing the environmental, the health, or the economic ones. And so they've given you the focus question. So that's really nice. And then there are some videos that you can watch just to get more familiar with the topic. And then a whole bunch of resources, which I think are saved over here in these resource folders. When you are going through these resources, you're going to do a lot of research. Try to find if you're looking particularly at other countries or you're looking at South Africa or Africa. So there's some really useful resources there to go through. The first thing is going to be actually going through these resources and trying to find which sites have the information that you are looking for. The next part is the phase 1 is our questions. They ask you for questions to guide your research. They actually give you a whole wad of questions here. In grade 12, you have to come up with your own questions, but here are questions that you can use. They say you can use 8 of these questions and you must add 2 of your own to your topic. So you need to pick 8 of these questions to help guide you for your research. You're looking at questions you need to ask yourself in order to complete this project. What information do you need to know? So really look at these questions to guide you. And if I can give you another tip, I would keep this document for next year. So next year when you get to grade 12 and you get a completely different topic for your PAT, use this document just to get an idea of the type of questions that they ask. Because in grade 12, you have to come up with your own questions. They don't give you any. So this will at least give you an idea of the style and the type of questions that you could maybe get to give you an idea. You can see all these lovely questions that you can use. Now they are different levels. Some of them are very simple, like just a definition. That's like a level 1 question. So simple, we know what it is. Then we get level 2, 3, and 4 questions, which go into more in depth about what are people's feelings, what if things change, how does that affect? So more in depth and higher level questions. So you need a variety of this level of questions. For your phase 1, you're going to start off with a folder structure, which you're going to create. They actually give it to you exactly how you must make it. So make those folders. My next tip is to make a backup. So as you can see, they've got a folder here. We've got our surname name. Obviously, you'll put your surname name so you name it according to that or according to whatever your teacher says. And inside here, we've got our phase 1, 2, and 3 folders. And these are going to be the files and documents that we're going to have inside there. Now, what I suggest that you do is every time you work on the PAT, especially if you worked a couple of days on the PAT, you also create a backup folder. And then you're going to copy your PAT. And then you're going to go to your backup folder and you're going to paste a copy over here. Don't drag it, just copy it, because otherwise if you drag it, it's going to move it. And then you're going to rename that whole folder name to the date, which will be like 2024. And don't use slashes, use dashes. 05 maybe and 06. Maybe that's the date. So now you've got a backup of that date. Now you go back to your original PAT and you carry on working over here. And after a couple of days, you make another copy and then go to your backup and you paste it. and you change this one's name to a different date. So that's 05-21. And this way you're creating a timeline of how your PAT has changed. So you can have evidence that you've been working on your PAT regularly, but also if something goes wrong, you can go back a week or 2 weeks or so on to when the PAT was fine. If something goes wrong, and it happens a lot, that something gets corrupted or something stops working and you need to go back, make sure that you've got your backups there. So that's what I would recommend as another tip. So please make sure you do the backups, and then you can read through this. Now you're going to create your planning document in your phase 1 folder, which is going to have all of those headings, which you can make very easily. You're going to put that focus question that we spoke about earlier. You're going to write that there under the focus question heading. You're going to talk about the task definition, which we've got some videos that can explain that, which is very similar to grade 12. And then we're going to go to the questions. Now this is almost exactly the same as grade 12. The only difference is you were given 8 of the questions, where in grade 12 you have to come up with your own questions. This section here is a lot of marks of the phase 1. Make sure that you complete this completely. Don't leave anything out. I have a PAT guide which has videos that were created, actually not by me, but Claire Smuts. Some amazing videos that can help you to do these questions, to get them in the right order and the nice formatting. I really recommend that you go through them because it'll make your life easier when you have to do all of this again next year. That's another reason why we're doing a grade 11 PAT, so that you can experience a little bit of what to expect for next year. So you need to have different types of questions with different categories. So you need to group those questions into different categories. You need to have different types of level questions. You need to have where you're getting that information that's going to answer that question. So does it come from a website and so on? And then the biographical information of that website. You're going to evaluate that website and then summarize that information. So here we break up all of that information. They talk about the different levels. They talk about the sources. How do you find them? And a lot of this information you can find from your sources over here. You're not limited to these. You can find others, but there are some resources here. So make sure that you go through all of this, and they explain exactly how to go through this. Now, my next tip is to make your life easier with trying to pick the right questions over here, is to actually go look at the resources first. Don't create questions and then go look for the answers. Rather go read the resources, go look at that information in these resources, and from there you can see, this question is answered in this particular resource. You ideally want to find at least 3 websites that cover the 10 questions that you want to ask. So really find a useful source that can answer a couple of questions. So go through a couple of these sources, go look at the information on them, and if you find a really nice site that's got the information related to what you want to find out, that can help guide you to go pick which of these questions you want to use. So it's almost like a reverse gear. You're looking at the answers and then determining which questions you're going to ask based on those answers. That's going to save you a lot of time, because otherwise if you pick the questions, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to find the answers. Rather find the answers, and that dictates what your questions are going to be. And so it's very important to have a Word document and a folder with your sources. Remember, if the sources are from the resource pack, you can just copy the PDFs there. Or if it's from a website that you found yourself, then you need to save that as a PDF. And I've got videos that can explain that to you as well. Make sure that you download Mr. Long's PAT guide for those details. So that's what you're going to hand in for your phase 1. There's the rubric. You can see all the details. I want to emphasize here the amount of marks for those questions. Here's where the questions start. There's 3 marks, plus another 3 marks, plus another 4 marks, just for that table of questions. Another 3 marks, another 4 marks, another 4 marks. There's so many marks just for that table of questions. So make sure that you complete that whole table. Just take note, you need at least 2 websites plus another source to get your information from. So you can use 2 websites, but you need to look for information elsewhere. Maybe you can get it from your textbook. Maybe you can find it in a newspaper article or a magazine. So you might have to find another source. And you'll notice in this rubric, it's just about, have you got 10 questions? That's a mark. Tick. You got it. Are they all organized in appropriate headings? Tick. That's a mark. Have you got your folder structure over here? Have you got meaningful file names? That's a mark. These are very easy things to accomplish. You just need to make sure that you go through and go, yes, that I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. So that's my next tip, is once you have finished a phase, take the rubric and mark it yourself before you submit it. Go through, did I do that? And if you did, you tick it. Anything that you didn't tick, go and make sure that you do it. Make sure that you get everything done. It's a tragedy if you just left things out, especially things that you could easily do. You just didn't do it. Get the marks. If you can't do something, then ask someone for help. Ask teacher for help. Ask, what do you need to do in order to get that mark? And they will give you the advice to be able to get that mark. So really get that for your phase 1. Your phase 2 consists of a questionnaire, which is very similar to what we do in Matric. They say you can use a Word document to design your questionnaire, or Google Forms or Microsoft Forms. Just double check with your teacher that they are happy with that. and you are going to use the questionnaire to find information that you can't find in your sources. That tends to be things like people's opinions. What do people do with their e-waste? To try to find what the people in your area do. So you're going to interview a whole bunch of people, make sure that you make a nice questionnaire with at least 5 questions that they can answer, and then you can take that information, put it into a spreadsheet, and then we're going to analyze it. I would strongly suggest you use Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, because that data then can be put into a spreadsheet quite easily. And they talk about the different types of questions that you can have. Now again, if you've got my PAT guide, you will have a video that explains exactly the type of questions you should be using, how you can set it up. And if you don't know how to do a Google form, there are videos for that. If you don't know how to do a Word document form, there are videos for that as well, as long as you've got the PAT guide. And remember, that PAT guide is going to help you for next year as well. So make sure that you get it. So there we go through these. Just a reminder, if you are using Google or Microsoft Forms, if you're using a digital online survey, you need to save that as a PDF and put it into your Phase 2 folder, because that needs to be marked by your teacher. So make sure that you do that as well. So if we scroll down, the next part is the spreadsheet. You've taken that spreadsheet and you need to process and analyze the information from that spreadsheet. So that's going to be all the stuff from your survey. And the key thing here is that you need at least 2 graphs. The difference between this and Matric is that the only difference really is that there are certain formulas that are required for Matric where you don't have to use them. You can use all the formulas you use from grade 10 and grade 11. In grade 12, it'll be exactly the same, except for you need to use grade 12 formulas as well. So you're going to use the information from the graphs, from these charts, to discuss some of the questions that you asked in your document from Phase 1. So it should be useful information. So whatever your theme is going through your document must guide you with what type of charts you're going to have. And if that guides you here, that will actually help you about which questions to ask in your survey. So when you're making your survey, make sure that you're thinking about the types of questions that can help you make nice charts that relate to your topic. So you're going to make at least 2 charts, you're going to make the document look nice and pretty. You're going to then go to a database. They're going to give you a database. So one of those databases that are in the resource pack, they will give you one of them, and you're going to use that. And so you're going to change the table names. You're going to edit the tables, make sure you format it correctly. You're going to create queries, at least 2, using what you've learned about queries. And that's going to help to narrow down that information in that database to information that you can talk about in your document from Phase 1. And then you're going to take those charts from the spreadsheet and the information from the database and talk about them in your document from Phase 1. So you're just going to update it with the information. It's probably going to be under the findings heading. What did you find out? What did your research tell you? And it's going to be research that comes from your websites, but also information that's going to come from your spreadsheets and your databases. And so your Phase 2, you're going to hand in that questionnaire. You're going to hand in a spreadsheet. You're going to hand in a database and an updated Phase 1 document. So there you can go through all the things in the rubric. And so again, it's clear, at least 5 questions, tick, you get the marks. Make sure that you get everything. The spreadsheet, make sure that you go through everything. Make sure that you're using the correct amount of charts. When you're using the formulas, they're going to ask you for complex functions that you were not taught in grade 11. My advice over here, go look at the videos that I have for grade 12 Excel. Maybe there's some functions and formulas there that you can use, because you haven't been taught that technically, but you can use that. So go look at your grade 12 content, or ask a grade 12 for an idea of a formula, and then you can use that to get that mark. With your database, make sure that you've edited the tables. Make sure you've done nice queries. You can see what queries you can use over there. Make sure that you've covered everything in your queries. And then make sure that you've updated your documents so that they have the new charts and that in them. So that's the Phase 2. And let's quickly go through the Phase 3. You are going to create a website. It's 2 pages, a home page and a second page. They basically tell you what should be in the home page. And in the second page, they give you some ideas. You're going to take the information from your findings, from your charts and your research, and talk about it, making sure you reference where that information came from. And so it really is a way to show off everything you've learned with your website and HTML, making sure you use all the tags. And I mean that. Go through the tag list and make sure that you're using every single one in some way. Using bookmarks, using bulleted lists, using headings. Make sure that you make it both consistent. You want a nice design on both pages so that it looks very nice. And then you're going to go and add in all those tags and information. Again, if you've got my PAT guide, I will give you a clear step-by-step way to be able to complete your website. The difference between Matric and grade 12 is that in Matric you have to do 3 pages and you use some of the grade 12 tags. So that's the only difference. So when you look at my videos for the website part of the PAT, when I talk about 3 pages, you only have to do 2. You're going to hand in your website, There's a final declaration of authenticity, which you can take as a digital document and then add it to your folder structure if you want, or you ask your teacher if they want a hard copy. It's basically just saying, yes, this is my own work. And here we can see the rubric, 48 marks, and it's making sure, have you got that? Have you got that? Have you got that? Go through this very carefully, making sure that you've got everything. Like your graphics, make sure that you're using the alt tag, make sure that you're referencing the graphics, make sure that the links work. Now just take note over here, they're going to talk about additional features outside of the grade 11 curriculum. Well, guess what? Go to the grade 12 videos for HTML. Maybe there are some ideas that you can use there. I also have a video that can teach you some other tags which you can use to really make your websites funky that you haven't been taught. You can add them. As long as you've got 2 different ones, you'll get all of those marks. Make sure that you've got everything, that it's all together. And over here, this document over here, this is the declaration of authenticity. This you must include in your pad, either a hard copy where you print this and you just fill it out and say, yes, this is my own work. And you just basically sign an agreement to say, I haven't copied other people's work. That's why we take it so seriously that you do your own work. You can maybe get a digital version of this and put this into your PAT folder. Just digitally edit the details in this document. So there we go. That is the PAT. Where do we go to now? I've got another video which explains what you can do next, which is going to be how to get the PAT guide and how to use my progress tracker, which can help you. Obviously, the progress tracker is for matric, but I've told you what is different. So the main differences from grade 12 to grade 11 is that they give you pretty much a focus question that you just have to adapt. They give you a whole bunch of questions that you only have to pick 8 from, and you have to think of 2 others when it comes to the phase 1. Phase 2 is pretty much the same as matric, except for you don't have to use the grade 12 formulas, although you might want to, because they say they want you to use formulas you haven't learned before. The database will be given to you. That is also different because you don't have to create your own database, but you will have to format it. And you don't have to do a report. In matric, you have to do a report for the database. And in the HTML, you have to do 2 pages in grade 11, and in grade 12, you have to do 3. So that's the key differences. Next step now, besides going to watch that next video, is to make sure that you go through the topic. Make sure you try to find resources that are really useful for you. So go read up about it, particularly ones with numbers. That's quite nice to talk about and get ideas of information. This type of information is what speaks to me, is that I can really talk about numbers and how things change and so on. Anything with graphs. Over here, we've got one where there's some charts at the bottom about numbers, and we can talk about that and see how things change. You can even put this into your spreadsheet, and you can even chart it yourself as well as extra information. So that's what I would do. Look at the resources, go start looking at the ideas for where you want to put your focus, whether it's on the environmental implications, the health implications, or economic implications. See where you want to put your focus. And the biggest tip that I give you is to download my PAT guide at tinyurl.com/MrLongPatGuide. There's links to resources and videos that are going to help you to get all the marks for this PAT, as long as you follow them correctly. Don't waste any time and get started as soon as you can, and good luck with your PAT. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. If we post more videos about the PAT, make sure that you don't miss them by clicking that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and follow us on TikTok at Mr. Long Education, as well as our other computer channel at Mr. Long Computer Terms. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.